Hello, world history people. Let's learn all about the Industrial Revolution today. Let's make it happen. This is a really important time in world history. It's where human society made some incredibly dramatic changes. Basically, before the Industrial Revolution, almost everybody on planet Earth was a farmer. After the Industrial Revolution, well, countries that have had industrial revolutions, most people become factory workers or service workers. So this is the huge, huge change in how society works. All right, let's check it out. So these some of these early factories. Factories are a big sign of industrial revolution stuff. Here's what a factory looks like from the outside. I want you to notice the smoke polluting the air. And then, yeah, you see a whole lot of smoke and pollution in London especially. And a whole lot of now really poor people living in cities. That really wasn't as big of a thing in the past. Usually people would just go out and farm somewhere. But now you can't even farm either. So yeah, the Industrial Revolution. The way that I'm going to present it in this class, you would think that, oh, one day we invented the train, and the next day we invented the car, and the next day we invented the airplane. That's not true at all. It was a very weird up and down kind of process that took about 100 years. But what continually did happen was that people's hand tools were replaced with complex machines that people used to walk around or ride around on horses. Now people just drive around in cars or trains or airplanes. And also, city life became way more important because you're not going to find a factory way out in the middle of the countryside and farmland. You're going to find factories in cities. So more and more people are now moving to cities. And also, these new places that have these factory jobs, they need a lot more workers. So they're going to bring in people from all around the world. And that's why when America started to industrialize, we had so many people coming to this country in the late 1800s. But yeah, these town life and village life, it's not as common anymore. People are now coming into the cities, living in crowded conditions. It's going to make things way more challenging. Okay, so yeah, the world population. At the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, there were about 1 billion people on planet Earth. And now today, there's 7.5 billion people on planet Earth. So the number's going up dramatically. And yep, levels of industrialization. The United Kingdom's got it going first. And then the United States will be in second place. And yeah, the world until 2000. What is this? Oh, money, the amount of the world makes. So America was actually a pretty poor country for the first half of our history. But once we industrialized, boom, we just took over from everybody else. And look, Japan's in second place. Isn't that interesting? I'll bring up Japan later in another video. Okay, so yeah, I think I said this at the beginning. It's the most incredible period of change in the history of the world. Some of it's good and some of it's bad. I think for the most part it is good. If you live in an industrial society, your life is generally easier. You will have machines that do your work for you. I mean, who here has ever hand-washed laundry? Who here has, well, living in Las Vegas, you basically need an air conditioner in the summertime. But if you don't have air conditioning in Vegas, good luck. It's going to be bad. And yeah, without the Industrial Revolution, you wouldn't have those machines to make your life more comfortable. So yeah, here's the life before the Industrial Revolution. And yeah, people are just farming all the time. But now it's factory life. Factories for days, factories everywhere. Okay, so how did the Industrial Revolution begin? Well, it actually started with those farms that we keep talking about. And it was really changes in food production because for most of history, you really needed people to work out on the farms and out on the fields, or else people would starve. And what happened was there was this guy named Jethro Tull. He invented this machine called the seed drill. And here's two examples of seed drills. So you could either push it kind of like a wheelbarrow, or you could put it on the back of some horses and they can do it for you. And what the seed drill does is a pretty simple machine. It first cuts a hole in the ground. It deposits a few seeds in the ground, and then it covers up the hole. So it's just, you just kind of move the wheelbarrow along, and it'll dig a hole, put seeds in the hole, and fill up the hole. So it was an incredibly more convenient way to do farming. And because of this invention, they now needed significantly less people on farms, because there were generally just a couple dudes who were full-time hole diggers, and you don't need hole digging anymore when you have the seed drill to do the work for you. And then another really cool concept was crop rotation. So for most of history, people were kind of dumb. And the first year they planted wheat, wheat grew, I don't know, 6 feet high. And then the second year, wheat grew 5 feet high. And the third year, wheat grew 4 feet high. And then wheat wouldn't grow at all. And they're like, oh, a witch has cursed our land. For it grew fine last year. What's wrong with it? I mean, we know now that the soil loses its nutrients and its ability to make certain crops work really well. So they came up with this strategy where every year you would rotate these crops between your fields, and it would always keep your soil fresh. And crop rotation, it has to involve turnips. Okay, like turnips, they are really good at making your soil better. And turnips are not really tasty food for humans, but pigs and horses and cows, they'll eat the heck out of them. So turnips for the win. People figured it out. It was great. All right, so there's the original seed drill by Jethro Tull, and there they are, seed drilling away. Okay, so this agricultural revolution led to having so much more convenient food supplies. I think crop rotation increased the amount of food 4 times over, and the seed drill means you also need less people to do work on the farms. And once people actually don't have to worry about food anymore, they're living longer, they're having more children, and they're more comfortable to move around the society looking for a better life. So really, by having all these people freed up from the farms, society's like, what are we going to do with these people? And that's when we created industrialization. All right, so there's another seed drill right there. And as you can see that once the Industrial Revolution happens, life expectancy starts going up dramatically. In fact, life expectancy doubles. Okay, like I'm 33, so if we were living back in the day, I would probably only have about 7 more years of life to live. But thankfully, this scale keeps going up, so I'm probably going to live till I'm 100. So there you go. Okay, and yeah, this is a point that I've already been making, but I'll make it quite clear right now. For my entire course, for all of the history I've ever talked about, 95% of people on planet Earth were full-time farmers. But with the seed drill, with crop rotation, and then with further improvements to farm life, we'll need significantly less people to grow our food for us. And today, in 2020, America has less than 2% of our population working as full-time farmers. And then a whole another thing I don't really want to explain is that the United States government pays our farmers to only work half their land. It has to do with some economic principles. We don't want to flood the food market. But if American farmers worked at 100% of our land and didn't get any payouts by the government, we could feed 8 billion people. And there's only 350 million people in the United States. There's only 7.5 billion people on planet Earth. So what I'm saying is the United States could very easily provide food for everyone on planet Earth if we wanted to. I mean, yeah, it would cost a lot of money, so we'd probably sell the food, but it's incredible how good we are at making food when so few of us are full-time farmers or agricultural workers. So, don't go hungry anymore. Food's everywhere in the United States. Yeah, even during a pandemic, people were afraid we'd run out of food. We're not running out of food. We got food for days. Okay, so yep, here's the old farming ways, and now they're bringing in machines to help farmers do their thing. And yeah, this is wild. So this is showing you how chicken production has changed since 1950 to 2008. And that big fat chicken is younger than the chicken back in 1950, and I'm sure it has like 3 or 4 times the body mass. So thank you, Raising Cane's and Chicken Shack, cause I love it. I love me some chicken. All right, and then here's all these tractors just farming up all the wheat, and they're so good at farming wheat. It looks like a desert when they're done. And then who milks your cows? Robots milk your cows. Okay, you hook up these cows to a machine, does all the milking for you. So it's a very efficient process. And yeah, farm jobs, as you can see, that since the Industrial Revolution, it was just a steady decline, that slowly more and more improvements happened, and it allowed for farmers to go and do other things and work in factories. Okay, so yes, a lot of these old farming families were no longer needed in the fields. They went to the cities to look for work. And this idea of sort of going into a city and growing the size of a city, that's called urbanization. So people are all moving in, okay? And usually around this time I like to have a conversation with the students, see if anybody grew up in a small town, but if you're learning from me, you moved to Las Vegas, which is a pretty big city. So it's just the standard way of progress. You can have more opportunity in the large city. And yeah, so for most of, for the last half of the 1800s, more farms were coming into the United States, but now farms are going down and kind of plateauing over here. So not a lot of farms in America anymore. And yep, who's doing the work right alongside their dad? Kids. Kids are also working. And yep, factory life. There you go. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of inventions. So let's make the magic happen. The first important invention is the steam engine by James Watt and Thomas Newcomen. Thomas the tank engine right there. And yeah, steamships, steam trains, the first transportation revolution in history. It's so wild to me that back in 10,000 BC, the only way people could have got around was by boats harnessing the wind, by pack animals, or by walking or running around. And then in the 1700s, in George Washington's time, it was the same thing. George Washington could only get around by riding an animal, walking or running, or going on a wind-powered ship. But now, the Industrial Revolution has opened up this whole new way for people to move and have machines take us places. So it's super duper great that these guys invented the steam engine, because it is kind of step one for this whole industrial process. All right, here's what the original train or steam engine looked like. So definitely very different than today. Here's one of these steam engines, just sort of focus on how it works. And that's starting to look a little bit more like a train, a steam engine. There you go. All right, another really cool thing is before the Industrial Revolution, most people only had like 2 or 3 pairs of clothes. Like, clothes were really hard to make, and clothes were generally really expensive. But this dude named James Hargreaves invented this machine, and there's the picture of it right there, called the spinning jenny, and it allowed cloth products to be made so much quicker and so much more efficiently. With the spinning jenny, people can now afford fashion, afford proper clothing, and clothes is now just a huge, huge deal. It's still a big deal today. I mean, if you're a country who's now starting an industrial process today, the first thing you're going to do is get a whole bunch of modern sewing machines, which are the future of spinning jennies, and you're going to have your people make clothes for the rest of the world. So there they are, spinning jennies. Turn the wheel, sews threads together, and make some cool clothes. So there's clothes from back in the day, men's fashion. Whoa, whoa. Okay, so now let's do some of the later inventions. Alessandro Volta, he developed the first battery. That's why we measure batteries in volts. And a guy named Michael Faraday created the first electric generator, also known as the dynamo. And yeah, this is what the original battery looks like, okay? It's like the size of a TV. And it really couldn't hold a lot of charge. And the thing is, this original technology, it's still how our batteries work today, where there's these plates that have a positive charge and a negative charge, and they're kind of bouncing around in there, and that creates electricity. But one thing that I always love to point out to teenagers, you're all glued to your smartphones, and what inevitably happens is every time you charge a rechargeable battery, its total battery life goes down a tiny bit. So, like, for example, I have this smartphone that's, I think, 3 years old, and I think it still will have a consistent charge for one whole day. But I think when I first got it, I wouldn't have to charge it for like 3 days. So I know that its total battery life has gone down over time, and that's because the rechargeable battery is losing its total charge. So don't overcharge your batteries, because it then starts to fry out some of these plates. So yeah, this is what a battery looks like on the inside. So it's magnetic forces bouncing around, creating electricity. And then, yeah, this guy's the big winner, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison invented 1,000 new things, but the most important thing he invented was the light bulb, and almost all of his inventions go off this concept of harnessing electricity. He also invented the video camera, the sound recorder, and the sound speaker. So he should be given a lot of credit for that stuff too. He basically invented all the stuff that'll eventually get in your smartphone. Thomas Edison, super smart guy. He's kind of controversial though. Some people say that he stole these inventions from other people, but hey, he's the one we give credit for. Henry Bessemer. He invented a process called the Bessemer process. Look at that. And it made steel really, really easily, and it made steel stronger. Before the Bessemer process, we did have steel, but steel was it was really expensive. It was not very common to have steel. Like maybe you'd have it in weapons, and that's about it. But once Bessemer created this idea that you could blast air inside of molten steel and it would make the steel perfect, then steel became largely used. And with that steel, people could build taller and taller buildings. So it's sort of the tool we needed to make skyscrapers a possibility. So super cool stuff right there. That's what the Bessemer process looks like. You got to melt steel and blast air into it. Make steel super great. There you go, making some steel happening. All right, and then this dude, Alfred Nobel, he invented dynamite. And he sort of did it. I think the story goes that his brother worked in a mine in Sweden, and something they have to do is they have to kind of like drill holes in the mine, and sometimes there's like gases and noxious fumes. So Alfred Nobel said, what if I create a chemical that will explode and to allow people to get in the mines more easily? And sure enough, he invented dynamite, and it worked great. But the thing is, it was so good at blowing up stuff, people quickly used it to blow up human beings. And Alfred Nobel was a pacifist. He felt terrible about it. So he used the money from his invention to create a foundation called the Nobel Peace Prize. And he said, I feel so bad for inventing this thing that's going to kill so many people. So I want to give credit to the people who are saving lives, unlike my invention, which is taking lives. So that's kind of cool for Nobel right there. All right, here he is inventing dynamite in his chemistry lab. And here's some famous people that have won the Nobel Peace Prize. So super cool. All right, and this one's a great one. Samuel Morse invented the telegraph, and Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Guglielmo Marconi, he invented the radio. So all of these are like communication technologies. And yeah, the telegraph, it's sort of like a text message, I guess you would say. I'm sure there's an app which is like, Morse code, the app, and you could like play with it. But the telegraph is where you just click this little button right here, and someone on the other end could listen in, and you could interpret those sounds as words. So that's super cool. Alexander Graham Bell did the telephone, and this is what the telephone originally looked like. So it's definitely evolved a lot today. And Marconi invented the radio, where you could just sort of wirelessly send sound and information. So all these came back in the 1800s, and they're all vital for us to communicate today. So yep, there's Marconi doing his thing. All right, and now we get to the final inventions of the Industrial Revolution. This is an incredibly important invention. Henry Ford invented the first affordable car. He did not invent the car, and it's really difficult to put that on one person. But cars were like super expensive when they were first invented. So Henry Ford created this process where he could make cars really efficiently. And it's called the assembly line process. Because in the past, one engineer or one human being would do all the work on these complicated machines. And Henry Ford recognized that it took a long time to train people, that people were constantly changing tools and running around the factory. So he created this concept called the assembly line, where he assigned each worker only one task. And the worker got really good at that one task, and then he pushed the car down, and then the guy who was in charge of the wheels came in. He put the wheels on. He was really good at that. He pushed it down. The guy who's really good at putting the seats in, he always just put the seats in, pushed down to the next guy. And I have this really fun class activity where I can prove to you how effective the assembly line process is. When one worker does the same thing again and again and again, it really helps the total speed and efficiency in the process. And I'll tell you, every factory in the world uses the assembly line process today. Like Henry Ford figured it out. And the Model T car was owned by, had to be a quarter of all Americans. This was the car to have back in the day. So let's check it out. Fun fact, Henry Ford gave us the idea of the weekend because before Ford, people usually worked 6 days a week. They worked on Saturdays. But Henry Ford made it kind of a national thing to say give everyone both Saturday and Sunday off. And so we should give him credit for having no school on Saturday because it was kind of his idea. All right, and then there's Henry Ford with his Model T, and there they are making them in the process. Ba-bam. All right, final slide today. Orville and Wilbur Wright invented the airplane in 1903. So this one is at the very end of the Industrial Revolution, but obviously airplanes a huge deal. People flying around. For so much of world history, humans only dreamed of being able to fly, and these guys figured it out. And the magic thing that they did was it was in the shape of the wing. So many times people tried to build flying machines, but they didn't realize that you have to curve the wings to have the air sort of push up under the wing. And it works, and it's the basis for all aviation we have today. So thanks, Wright brothers. You guys were doing the right thing. All right, that's it for me today. Peace out.